The air is warm tonight, not hot, not heavy, just warm, like bathwater left too long under the stars. Somewhere, a palm frond shifts in the breeze, and a single drop of water slides down a marble stair. You imagine yourself leaning against a balustrade of carved stone, the scent of jasmine and damp earth rising around you, and above the last soft glimmer of twilight hanging over Babylon. They say the gardens floated not literally, of course, but in memory, terraces stacked like dreams, fountains humming gently beneath the chatter of doves, and somewhere behind the vines, someone's sandals tapping across polished brick. Tonight, you're not here to conquer or rule or recite Mesopotamian dates. You're here to drift, to walk barefoot through cool corridors, where every step echoes softly against stone and moss, and where history for once isn't loud, it whispers. So, if you enjoy strange stories that bloom quietly in the dark like lilies, consider subscribing. I'm here every night with more odd, overlooked corners of history to help your mind wander. And maybe let me know, where are you listening from? And what time is it where you are? I'd love to hear. You wake slowly, as if the morning is being poured into you, not with haste, but drop by drop, like oil warming over flame. There is no rush in this place, no horns or roosters, only the whisper of a distant fountain echoing through stone and vine. Your back rests against smooth green bricks, still holding the breath of the night. They are neither cold nor warm, only ancient and somehow. That is enough to still your chest. You shift slightly, your linen robe brushing against terracotta dust. Overhead, great terraces rise into the blue, stacked like hanging shelves of heaven, each one tangled in creeping vines, wet leaves, and little flowers whose names you do not know, but whose scent makes you blink slower. Deeper. Somewhere above, a dove coos once, then falls silent. You listen. You are good at that here. The world hums in quiet textures, trickling water that skips down a narrow channel cut into the stone. The soft rustle of fig leaves turning toward the sun, the faint sound of a servant sweeping clay dust from the next terrace. Even the garden breathes around you, not with lungs, but with roots and fountains, ropes and shadow. You rise carefully. Your knees are stiff, but not in pain, more like old hinges not complaining. Just remembering. You brush your palms against your robe, then pause, hands hovering. The dust on your fingers is greenish, faintly sweet. You don't know if it's from the bricks or the plants, but somehow you understand that it doesn't matter. Everything here has blended stone, soil, scent, so that nothing belongs to itself anymore. You move toward the edge of the platform, bare feet soundless against polished paths of fired tile. The edges curve like waves, not sharp but smooth, and you pause beneath a pergola laced with blooming tendrils. There is shade here, cool as wet cloth. You stand in it for a long moment, looking out. You see Babylon waking, not in full, but softly. Smoke rises from clay chimneys, thin and gray. A boy leads goats past a cluster of columns below, singing something tuneless but happy. You see rooftops, some flat, some domed glowing peach in the new sun. And everywhere, color. Ochre walls, indigo banners, bronze glinting off the head of a carved lion. You blink, and it shimmers slightly. Not like a mirage, but like something half remembered, as if this has all happened before, and will again, behind you. A gentle splash. You turn. A woman is watering the ferns with a hollowed gourd. She does not look at you. Not out of rudeness, it's simply that nothing here needs to be hurried. If you are meant to speak, you will. If you are not, the vines will do it for you. You continue upward, your hand brushing the rope that trails alongside the stair. It is damp from the fountain above and leaves a little trail on your palm like dew. You press your fingers to your lips without thinking. Salt, earth, old copper. Each terrace you pass is its own world. One is full of pomegranates, their fat fruit splitting in the sun. Another smells of garlic and bitter leaves. A third has no scent at all, only silence and white blossoms that seem to float, as if unsure whether they belong to earth or sky. You rest often, not from exhaustion, but to notice. Each corner offers something: a hummingbird pausing mid-air, a clay figurine tucked into the roots of a tree, a stool still warm where someone must have sat only moments before. When you reach the fifth terrace, your breath catches not from the climb, but from the view. You are high enough now to see beyond the city walls. The river lies below like a silver belt, braided and shifting. You see boats long and lean sliding past each other without sound. Fields of barley stretch toward the horizon in gentle ripples, and further still. Desert, endless, pale, patient. A woman passes you, humming. Her arms are full of cut herbs. She nods once. You return the nod. Neither of you speaks. There is something sacred in not naming things, in letting them be. You find a bench, carved from limestone and worn at the edges, and sit. The seat is cool at first, then settles beneath you. A small clay jar rests beside it. Inside, slices of dried melon and a folded cloth. A gift. A mistake, or simply the kind of thing this place does offering without asking. You take a piece, sweet, but not too. Just enough to remind you that your mouth exists. A breeze moves through. It brings with it the smell of myrrh and watercress. And something else, old paper, no. Wet bark. You can't name it. You stop trying. Your eyes wander to a group of children pulling a little cart of reeds. They laugh, then fall quiet when an older man passes, muttering to himself as he balances a tray of glass cups. One falls, shatters on stone, and no one reacts. Not out of indifference, but because in the gardens, even accidents are slow. Your own thoughts begin to slow now. Words blur. Time drips. You don't fall asleep. You don't drift. You remain exactly where you are, surrounded by stone and vine and water, in a city where nothing floats and yet everything does. You exhale, deep and full, and feel something in your chest untangle, like a knot you didn't know was there has been loosened. Just slightly. The woman with the herbs passes again. This time she glances at you, smiles. Nothing is said. Nothing needs to be. You are part of the garden now. You remain seated for some time, motionless except for the slow curl of your fingers resting in your lap, the distant bird song weaving softly above you like a thin blue thread stretched across the garden's stillness. And just when the breeze feels as if it might carry you back down the terraces in a single breath, you hear them footsteps, light, precise, almost too deliberate to belong to a gardener or a child. The sound of sandals tapping against stone in a rhythm that suggests ceremony more than routine. And when you lift your gaze, the servant is already near, golden sandals gleaming beneath the hem of a white robe, their shine too perfect to be practical, too ornate for dirt. And yet, here they are, silent, dustless, reflecting the filtered morning sun like two small mirrors set loose upon the earth. The servant does not speak, does not bow, does not ask. He merely kneels slowly, not with reverence, but with the kind of fluid, unbroken motion that comes from years of being unnoticed, years of holding cups out to those who never look him in the eye. But you do, and in that glance you notice things, the sharpness of his cheekbones beneath the veil of heat, the copper band looped around one wrist, the faint shimmer of oil on his skin, and the jar he carries is small, round, not the kind made for travel or trade, but for offering, for moments like this. And he holds it out without speaking, as if your thirst has already been decided, your need assumed not out of pity, but precision. You take the jar, slowly, feeling its weight heavier than it looks, cool to the touch, rim stained with something, perhaps rosewater, perhaps time. The servant watches, not your lips, not your hands, but the space around you, as if guarding something invisible, something fragile. And when you raise the jar to drink, you expect nothing, and yet the moment the water touches your lips, the taste breaks into your senses like a story. It is cold, impossibly so, not sharp, but deep, with the faintest flavor of something old stone, perhaps, or copper pipes beneath a city, maybe even the ghost of a mint leaf left too long in the sun. You drink slowly, not out of politeness, but because something about the act feels ceremonial. And when you lower the jar, the servant is already rising, not quickly, not slowly, simply moving like a shadow released from its tether, and he begins to walk away, toward the shaded colonnade draped in ivy, his sandals making no sound now, only light bending beneath his feet. And before you can speak, if you even meant to, he is gone, swallowed by green silence and hanging vines. The jar remains in your hand, its surface now warming in the light. And you wonder who trained him to walk like that, who taught him that silence was a skill, that presence could be a gift. You wonder if he was born in Babylon or brought from elsewhere, carried like clay from one empire to another, reshaped, repainted, named and renamed until the only part of him left was movement and water and the perfect shine of sandals. No one notices unless they too have spent years not being seen. You set the jar down beside you on the stone, watch a bead of water roll down its neck, disappear into the dust like it was never there. And as your gaze drifts, you realize the path ahead has changed. Not in layout, but in texture. What was once a series of steps now feels more like a stream bed, curved, worn, smooth in places where countless feet have passed. And you rise, slowly, letting your weight shift gently forward, as if the garden itself is inviting you upward. Each step light, your breath even. And as you ascend, you pass under arches of woven palm fronds, the air cooler there, with little patches of shadow dancing on your arms. And you imagine that somewhere deep within these walls, there are stories pressed into brick, not etched or written, but absorbed, like perfume into cloth. Tales of servants who once saw things they shouldn't, kings who whispered secrets while pretending to drink, queens who planted herbs for poisons and called them incense. You smile faintly, not because you believe any of it, but because you do. You always have. This place has that effect. It makes lies sound like memory, and memory feel like prophecy. Another fountain gurgles softly nearby. This one different lower, closer to the ground, with a shallow basin lined with smooth river stones, some warm, some cool, all catching bits of light that shimmer like coins tossed in by invisible hands. You crouch beside it, not to drink, but to dip your fingers into the water. The surface breaks gently, and the ripples widen across the basin like rings of thought. And for a moment, you wonder if the servant stood here earlier, drawing from this very pool, if his reflection once mingled with your own, if the water remembers both your faces and holds them in its gentle silence. Behind you, a sound not loud, but soft enough to stir something in your chest, a reed flute, perhaps, or a child humming. You don't turn around, not yet. You want to carry this moment a little longer, its stillness, its weight, the way the light folds around you without asking anything in return. And just as you begin to rise, a breeze brushes your cheek, scented with something new, orange blossom, maybe, or crushed leaves. It carries the promise of the next terrace, the next moment, and so you follow, not out of duty, not out of curiosity, but because the garden is leading you, not with paths, but with gestures, and the air ahead grows thicker, greener, louder, not with sound, but with presence. And somewhere above, you sense the servant watching again, not to be seen, not to judge, but simply to witness, and the thought steadies you, reminds you that in this place, you are never alone. Even when no one speaks, you walk now, slowly, as if the soles of your feet are remembering something older than the garden itself, a rhythm not learned but inherited, and the path beneath you is neither straight nor curved, it wavers like thought, dipping gently between clusters of moss-soft stones and patches of sun-warmed tile. And above you, the vines begin to thicken, stretching overhead like arms locked in slow embrace, their tendrils curling down the sides of Babylonian brick that has forgotten its original color, the dust and rain of centuries having painted it a shade between time and shadow. You lift your hand and trail your fingers along the surface rough. Yes, but also worn smooth in places by hands like yours, hands from lives long dissolved into the roots below, each brick holding a temperature, a scent, a memory, some still warm from the sun, others cool where shadow pools like spilled ink. And the vines, they do not grow wild here, not exactly. They are placed, trained, persuaded by thin cords of twine and stone weights to follow patterns only the gardeners understand. Yet their leaves still tremble with defiance, as if no amount of human instruction can fully erase their desire to reach, to drape, to spill like hair over the shoulders of these forgotten walls. And you breathe in, catching the green scent of sap and shaded leaves, with a hint of wet bark and the faintest trace of honey, though there are no bees in sight, only the murmur of water behind the brick, some inner channel perhaps, still running deep, as it has since the days when kings bathed beneath palm trees and called it diplomacy. The path narrows, and your shoulders brush the hanging vines now, soft and damp, some so low they kiss your cheek or rest briefly on your neck before slipping past. And it feels less like walking and more like being invited, like stepping into a thought someone left open for you. Here the light is dappled, not sun nor shade, but a gentle flicker between, like standing inside a breathing curtain of green silk. And there is silence, not empty, not void, but full of the sound things make when they choose not to speak. The rustle of a leaf as it turns in its sleep, the crackle of a seed pod beneath your heel, the faint sound of brick exhaling beneath its weight, and you realize you are not thinking anymore, not naming, not translating, just receiving, absorbing, like clay underwater and ahead. A corner turns, sharply but not suddenly, and you follow without question, because here the paths do not demand, they suggest. And there before you is a wall unlike the others, not because of shape or size, but because of what clings to it, vines. Yes, but also fragments of tile still clinging to the mortar, blue and gold, patterned with spirals and fish, some chipped, some whole, each glinting like memory in the shifting light. You reach out, drawn to one in particular, a piece no larger than your palm, glazed in deep indigo, cracked but intact, and when your fingers brush it, you feel a texture not just of glass, but of intention, of someone who once pressed this tile into place with hands calloused and steady, perhaps while speaking softly to themselves in a language lost beneath the roots. And for a moment, you wonder if that same voice once passed along this path, beneath this same veil of vine, perhaps pausing as you do now, to breathe, to forget, to remember. And as your hand falls away, the wall seems to hum, not loudly, but with a resonance deep and low, as if approving, or acknowledging, or simply existing beside you in agreement. The air here is heavier, not oppressive, but dense with age, with layers of breath and dust and prayer. And when you step forward, it feels like descending despite the path remaining flat, like entering the lower chambers of a thought, somewhere quieter, slower, more sacred. And then voices, not near, not far, just beyond the vines perhaps, not speaking clearly, but in rhythmic cadence. A chant or instruction, or perhaps just laughter passed through leaves until meaning melts into melody. And you don't need to understand. You only need to hear. And you pause beneath a fig tree so gnarled its roots have lifted the tiles beneath it like ribs beneath old skin. And above, a single fruit hangs low, overripe and split, its red flesh visible, glistening, but untouched, a gift, a warning, or simply a delay. You do not take it, but nod once, as if to say, "Yes, I see you too," and continue on. And now the vines grow thicker, forming small tunnels of green, corridors with ceiling and wall all the same, and stepping inside them feels like stepping into breath itself, the moisture in the air settling onto your skin like mist, your robe growing heavier with it, your pace slower, more deliberate, and yet still you go. Forward, always forward, led not by signs, but by scent, a sweetness now, like crushed lilies, or perhaps bruised herbs, something between perfume and medicine. And then, suddenly, the vines part. Just briefly, revealing a small opening in the brick, no door, no frame, just an arch barely tall enough for you to pass, and beyond it, not another terrace, not another path, but a still room, half open to sky, half buried in earth, its floor covered in fine ash-colored sand, smoothed by some invisible hand, its only feature a basin at the center, shallow, dry, but filled with petals white, blue, pale gold, all dry, all perfectly arranged, and in the center, a single stone, not cut, not polished, just placed, like punctuation in a sentence too long to read in one breath. And you sit, not because you must, but because the moment folds around you like a robe freshly warmed by the sun, and the vines, ever present, begin to grow down from the opening above, not rapidly, but steadily, curling along the brick, casting new patterns of shade over the petals below. And you close your eyes now, not to sleep, but to see better, to remember not who you are, but where you are, somewhere between breath and stone, between vine and brick, and for a while, that is all. You remain seated in that still chamber, where vines stretch slowly downward like fingers testing the edge of sleep, and the stone beneath you breathes with a warmth left by the sun, though no direct light touches it now, only a gentle luminescence that slips through leaves and filters across the surface like silk. Your palm rests on the ash-colored sand, the texture fine, like ground rice or sifted bone, and when you lift your hand, a perfect print remains 5 fingers. One life, a ripple of memory impressed into the stillness, and you don't brush it away. Not yet. It feels like a signature, or perhaps a silent agreement between you and the room. The petals in the basin stir slightly as if catching your presence, their edges curling inward, not in fear, but in recognition. And beyond the arch behind you, the garden waits, but does not call. It gives you space, time, the same way an old friend steps aside so you may grieve, or remember, or simply exist for a moment without the need to explain yourself. You breathe in slowly, and the air holds a note of cedar bark and dry fig. Beneath it, a fainter trace of cool clay. And when you close your eyes again, you hear the garden's heart not in birdsong or footsteps, but in silence, in the way roots crack stone without sound, in the way vines wrap themselves around pillars without asking permission. And then, something shifts not outside, but within the wall to your left, a subtle creak like wood turning in its sleep. And when you turn your head, you see it a thin door, flush with the wall, nearly invisible, framed in cypress wood, so aged it blends seamlessly into the brick. And there is no handle, only a small hollow at shoulder height, no wider than your palm. And though no one told you what to do, your body already knows. You stand slowly, let your hand press into the hollow, and the stone beneath your fingers is warmer than the rest, smooth, shaped like a river pebble. And when you push gently, the door gives way with the softest sigh, opening not into brightness, but into cool shadow. And so you step through, not out of curiosity, but as one continues a conversation that began long before words were needed. The air inside is cool, damp, the scent of wet roots and ancient wood settling over your shoulders like a shawl. And the sound here is different, deeper, slower, as if every breath has traveled through centuries before reaching your ears. The floor is stone, worn uneven, shaped by the passage of bare feet, not shoes, and the walls curve gently inward like a hollow carved by water. And as you walk, you begin to feel the roots not with your eyes, but with your body, the way the air grows thicker, denser, how the silence becomes heavier, not oppressive, but protective. And then you see them, the cypress roots, emerging from the stone like slow-growing flames, some thick as your arm, others finer than hair, all twisting in quiet conversation, draped across the ceiling and walls as if this room was built not around them, but beneath them, to honor them, to listen. And at the far end, a bench simple, carved directly from the stone wall, its surface smoothed by time and use. You sit, again without question, and the moment you do, the room changes, not visually, but in weight, as if your presence completes something, finishes a sentence begun long ago. And as you settle, the sound returns, not footsteps, not voice, but a low, steady drip of water from somewhere above, slow and even, each drop landing in an unseen pool with the patience of stone shaping stone. And in that rhythm, your thoughts begin to drift, not aimlessly, but with purpose, as if guided by an unseen current beneath your chest. And memories not your own begin to surface: a boy hauling water jars before dawn, his arms trembling, a woman pruning fig leaves by moonlight, humming softly to a child who has already fallen asleep, an old man carving spirals into the garden tiles, not as decoration, but as a message only the wind can read. And you begin to realize this room is not a room. Not exactly, it is a vessel, a keeper, a breath held by the earth itself. And you are allowed here, not as guest, but as listener, as witness. And somewhere far above, through layers of stone and vine and time, you sense the garden continuing, the servants moving like poems unwritten, the birds tracing lazy arcs through the late-day sky, the fountains speaking in their endless circular tongue, and none of it requires you. Not now, not yet. And so you remain here, beneath the cypress roots, and let the silence do its work. It settles in your shoulders, loosens your jaw, slows your heartbeat until even your breath forgets its urgency. And in that slowness, you understand something not with your mind, but with your spine, your skin, your bones, that the garden is not above you. Not entirely. It is also within, beneath, beside, in the shape of your shadow, in the coolness of your breath, in the echo of your step, and that no matter where you go next, a part of you will carry this root chamber always, like a secret folded in your sleeve, a cool place inside your chest where silence still lives. You lean back against the wall now, stone against your shoulder blades, and the dripping continues, steady, even, timeless. And perhaps you will rise in a moment, or perhaps not. Perhaps the vines outside will begin to stir again, or the servant in gold sandals will appear once more, offering another cup of water you didn't realize you needed. But for now, there is only this, only you, the cypress, the slow drop of water, and the feeling that somewhere far above, the garden is breathing. You rise again, not hurriedly, not with purpose, but because something inside you gently tilts toward movement, like a petal falling toward water without knowing why. And your feet remember the way even before your eyes adjust, the soft shuffle of heel to stone, the hush of air that thickens and then lightens again, as the narrow room begins to widen and slope gently upward. The roots recede slowly overhead, replaced once more by stone, so old it has begun to glow faintly with memory. Not light, not warmth, but something quieter. And ahead, a narrow passage, framed by columns no wider than a man's shoulders, carved with shallow, curling marks like wind on sand. Unreadable, but familiar. And beyond that, you see it, a soft spill of golden light, not strong, but steady. And it draws you not forward, but upward, the incline gentle, the air cooling with every step until your skin begins to feel the difference. The way ancient chambers do, less like rooms and more like breath exhaled from the lungs of the building itself. And at the top of this rise, framed in curved stone and vines grown thin with age, is the window, the Queen's window. Though no one calls it that aloud, not anymore. You step closer and feel the change, not in light or heat, but in sound. The way silence here presses differently against the ear, more like velvet than fog. And the window is not large, perhaps the size of an open book, but it is tall, framed in limestone, smoothed to a dull sheen by fingers long forgotten. And it does not open, it never has. Not in living memory, though every servant has stood before it at least once. Each gardener, each handmaid, each child passing through with a tray of figs or bowls of barley and honey, all pause, all glance through the pane, and all leave quietly, changed in a way they never speak of. And now you are here, and the window does not open for you either, nor does it need to, because through its translucent glaze, not glass, but some ancient shimmering resin, you see a vision not quite outside, not quite reflection, and not quite memory, but something between, a pale image of a garden no longer there, its paths straighter, its fountains fuller, its trees younger, their leaves larger, greener, every leaf trembling with the breath of a younger wind. And at the center, standing motionless, is a woman, not facing you, but turned ever so slightly away, her arms hidden within long draping sleeves, her head bare, her hair coiled into a single thick braid trailing down her back. And though you cannot see her face, you know she is the queen, not because of jewels or posture, but because of the stillness, the way the entire garden seems to hush around her, the way the fountains spray bows toward her feet, the way even the fig tree leans its shadow in deference. And you do not move, you do not speak, and she does not turn. And yet something passes between you, not knowledge, not greeting, but something older, like recognition whispered through the bones. And it is only then that you notice there is no glass in the frame, no pane, no barrier, and yet you cannot pass through. Not because you are forbidden, but because you belong on this side, and she belongs on hers. And the window is not a window, but a threshold, a thin place where time forgets its shape. And the air here tastes different of dried rose petals and pressed apricot, of stories told once and never again. And your breath comes slower now, not because you are tired, but because the moment asks for reverence. And so you stand, one hand lightly resting on the stone sill, the texture warm beneath your fingertips. And for a long time, or perhaps no time at all, you remain like this, until the vision begins to fade, not sharply, not suddenly, but as if the queen herself has stepped gently backward and the garden has closed its eyes, and the air loses its taste of fruit and story, and returns to quiet dust and jasmine. And still, you do not move, because some part of you remains inside that other garden, with her, perhaps a shadow at her heel, or a word on her tongue that never needed to be spoken. And finally, slowly, you draw in a breath deeper than the ones before, and step back, and the room behind you exhales, its silence reshaped once more, and the window does not close, because it never opened. And yet you feel at the end of something, the soft closing of a thought. And now the corridor curves again, leading away from the queen's window, downward this time, toward the cooler part of the structure, where the water channels run deeper and the moss climbs higher on the walls. And you follow, not because you must, but because the window has released you, and your footsteps now sound slightly louder, more present. And the path opens into another space smaller, darker, filled with the scent of pressed herbs and wax. And there, resting on a low stone ledge, is a single folded cloth, not royal, not ornate, but finely made, soft to the touch, and beneath it, a shallow bowl of water, perfectly still, a mirror waiting not for reflection, but for remembering. And when you kneel beside it, you see not your face, but leaves, stone, water fragments of all you've passed, held gently in the basin's curve. And you know, without words, that this water has been drawn from the same well used by the queen herself, not in your time, but in some other. And to touch it now is not cleansing, not ritual, but return. And so you do, one finger tracing the surface, watching the ripples slide outward, never breaking, only bending. And as you rise, your body carries with it something quieter, something stiller, like the last curl of smoke after a candle has gone out. And as you leave that chamber, the corridor bends once more toward the garden's heart. And though the queen's window remains behind, unmoving, unopened, untouched, a part of you now walks with her always, silent, unseen, like shadow following shade. You follow the curve of the corridor until it folds into light, a quiet, dappled kind of light, not sharp nor sudden, but soft like cloth left to dry in shade. And when you emerge, the garden welcomes you again, not with sound or movement, but with stillness, as if it had paused its breath and waited for you to return. And as you step onto the cool flagstone path, you feel the shift from hidden chamber to open sky, from whispered memory to living silence. And the air is different here, heavier with the perfume of late-blooming blossoms, spiced with old rain, and shaded by overgrown canopies of myrtle and fig. And you begin to walk, slowly, instinctively avoiding the scattered petals that drift lazily across the path like autumn leaves with nowhere to land. And then, from behind the curtain of vines, you see him, the servant who sweeps, his robe the color of worn parchment, hem faded, sandals thin, and in his hands a broom fashioned not from straw, but from woven reeds bound with silk thread. And he does not look at you, nor does he pause, but you know, somehow, that he has seen you, that he has seen everyone, that he has always been here, sweeping, not as labor, but as language, as a kind of reverence, each motion slow, deliberate, each stroke across the stones as gentle as a sigh. And the petals do not resist him, they lift with a whisper, spin once, and fall again, only to be swept once more. And as you watch, something settles in your chest, a feeling without name, something like peace, but deeper, something like grief, but gentler, because you understand now that this task is not meant to end, not because of cruelty, but because the petals will never stop falling, and he will never stop sweeping, not out of punishment, but because this is the shape his love has taken, the act of keeping beauty visible, of preserving stillness in motion. And you step aside, letting him pass. And as he does, you catch a glimpse of his face lined. Yes, but soft, not tired, not bitter. And for a moment, you wonder how long he has been here, years, decades, centuries. But the thought fades, becomes unimportant, because time in this garden has folded in on itself, and eternity has taken the form of sweeping petals, of dustless stone, of footsteps that never echo. And he moves on, disappearing around a curve in the path, and still the petals fall, and the garden accepts this as natural, like breath or nightfall. And you realize you have not heard a bird in some time, nor the splash of the fountain, only the broom, only the rustle of silk brushing against stone. And perhaps this is why the garden remains whole, untouched by the ruin of time, because someone remembers it with their hands. Every day, every hour, by clearing the petals one by one. And you continue walking, not quickly, not aimlessly, your own feet careful not to disrupt what he has already passed. And the air grows warmer now, the sky above flickering between pale gold and a shade of soft blue that does not exist outside of dreams. And ahead, another alcove opens, a resting place, shaded, empty save for a bench carved into the wall and a bowl of dates resting in its corner, fresh, untouched, as if left for you before anyone knew you'd come. And you sit, not out of weariness, but to match the stillness of the space, and the bench is cool against the backs of your legs, smoothed by time. And from here you can see the path he swept, the neat curl of petals gathered into little corners, tucked beside columns, never thrown away, only moved. And perhaps that is the lesson, that nothing here is discarded, not even the fallen things, only rearranged, re-honored. And you look down at your hands and feel the dust there, soft, scented with rose, with crushed time. And for a long while, nothing moves, not even you. And the garden hums without sound, a vibration more than a melody. And slowly, the breeze returns, not strong, just enough to lift a few more petals from the trees. And you do not rush to catch them. You simply watch, the way one watches stars or candlelight. And the memory of the servant stays with you, the way he moved, the way he didn't speak, the way everything seemed to bow slightly as he passed, not in fear, but in respect. And maybe, one day, long after this dream has faded, you will remember him again, not in thought, but in movement. When your hands clean a table slowly, or when you pause before sweeping something aside, and you'll remember that even the smallest acts hold meaning when done with presence, with care, and you'll smile, faintly, without knowing why. And the garden will exhale in you, quietly, unseen. And now the shadows stretch farther, the sun tilting towards some horizon you cannot see, and the bowl beside you contains fewer dates than before, not because you ate them, but because something has been shared, some offering received. And the bench grows warmer, as if someone once sat beside you, though no one did. And so you rise again, your body a little slower now, not tired, just quieter, like a song nearing its end. And as you step back onto the path, the petals begin to drift again, and the air smells of fig leaves and warm stone. And though you do not see him, you know the servant is still here, just beyond the bend, sweeping the next fall, arranging the next offering of silence. And in your chest, the thought repeats, not everything that repeats is punishment. Sometimes it is devotion in disguise. You walk now with less intention and more trust, letting the garden shape your steps, as if the paths themselves remembered your feet before you arrived, as if every turn had been waiting for you since long before your name had ever been spoken aloud. The breeze moves differently now, lower, more languid, brushing the edges of your sleeves like a gentle warning. The light has changed, too, not fading but deepening, the way amber darkens as it ages, or like honey poured slowly from an ancient jar, thickening with the last of the sun. And up ahead, where two tall cypress trees lean slightly toward one another, you see it there, almost hidden in the shadow of their silence, a tall bronze gate, closed, resting so still that it appears melted into the wall itself. You move closer, and the sound beneath your sandals shifts. Not stone, not gravel, something between metal perhaps, worn smooth by time, covered in dust so fine it clings like smoke to your ankles. The gate rises high above you, far taller than needed for any person, far heavier than what human hands should be able to open. Its frame carved with slow, swirling patterns that do not repeat, as if they were drawn by water, not tool, as if they continue to grow, subtly, each time you blink. And then you see it, just there, low and to the left of the center, seam an indentation the shape of a palm. You kneel instinctively, not because you know what to do, but because your body seems to recall a memory you were never told. You place your hand there, softly, and the bronze is not cold, it is warm, like skin left in the sun, but not burning. You press, lightly, and nothing happens, and so you wait, and the garden waits with you. The trees still, the breeze halts, the birds, if there were any, have gone quiet. Only silence answers your breath. Then, slowly, the light around you begins to shift again, not brighter, not darker, but lower, as if the entire sky has begun to bend downward, draping itself across the walls, tucking itself into each crease of the bronze like a blanket preparing for night. And as the dusk fully arrives, not sunset, but the exact moment the day sighs and hands itself to the evening, you hear it, a sound like old stone exhaling, a sound like a long-forgotten string being plucked once, then again. And the gate begins to move. It does not swing, it withdraws, inward, into itself, melting back slowly like wax before a steady flame. No noise, no resistance. And beyond it, not another garden, not another chamber, but a corridor of light, a golden, endless passage of warm glow, the kind of light that comes from something living but unseen, like firelight filtered through amber, like sunrise remembered through closed eyes. You step forward, and the moment you cross the threshold, the gate breathes shut behind you, quietly, firmly, and the air ahead feels weightless. The corridor is neither warm nor cool. It is the exact temperature of memory. And as you move forward, the light folds around you, not blinding, not sharp, just present, like being wrapped in a story you once heard as a child, but never remembered the ending. The floor beneath you softens, not carpet, not moss, just softness itself, something your feet accept without question. The walls are lined with what appear to be tapestries, but they do not hang, they shimmer. They shimmer in and out of clarity, revealing brief scenes, boats gliding down moonlit rivers, hands brushing over scrolls, a single candle flickering beside a bowl of dates. Each image pulses once, then fades. You keep walking. You do not pause. You are not meant to pause. This is not a hallway to explore. It is a hallway to pass through, and somewhere, far ahead. You begin to sense music, not music in the way you know it, but the suggestion of harmony, the idea of melody held gently at the edge of perception, like someone humming from another room. It draws you onward, not like a command, but like a welcome you have waited a long time to hear. Then, after what feels like both minutes and centuries, you arrive. The corridor ends in a circular space, domed and open to the sky. And the sky above is not the one you left. It is deeper, richer, impossibly close, stars blooming across it like flowers you've never seen. And in the center of the chamber stands a tree, a single, slender tree with silver leaves that do not shimmer. They glow, quietly, each one a slow heartbeat of light. And at its base sits a low table, carved from stone so old it has begun to forget it was ever rock, its surface etched with maps, not of land, not of seas, but of paths, choices, silences, around it. Cushions woven in deep reds and ochres, scattered as if guests had just risen, or never arrived. You step forward and lower yourself onto the nearest cushion. The ground accepts you gently. The trees' leaves sway. Though there is no wind, the music is gone now. Or perhaps it has entered you. You breathe, and you realize the corridor behind you has vanished. Not closed, not hidden, vanished. The only way out is forward, but there is no path ahead. Only this room, this sky, this moment. And you are not afraid. You are not confused. You are not even curious. You are simply here, and for once, that is enough. And somewhere inside, you begin to understand this is not a place meant to be found. It is a place meant to remember itself through you. And maybe, just maybe, the bronze gate opens not with time, not with force, but with presence, with stillness. And as the silver leaves continue their quiet rhythm, and the stone beneath you breathes a warmth not of heat, but of memory, your eyes begin to close, not from fatigue, but from fullness, because the gate did not open for you. It opened because you had become someone it could welcome. You remain seated beneath the silver-leaved tree for some time, though time here does not behave as it once did. Minutes, hours, even days could have passed without making a ripple in your perception. The air remains still, not heavy, but suspended, like the breath held by someone listening closely. Eventually, you rise, not because you feel urged to, but because something inside you begins to unfold gently, like a page turning of its own accord. You walk toward where a wall might have been, and it yields. There is no door, no passage, just the quiet agreement of space that opens as you near it, like water parting for a hand, and beyond it. You step into something not quite a garden, not quite a hall, something in between. It is vast, not in size alone, but in sensation. There are no columns here, no walls, only plants, layers of them, hanging, curling, reaching, some from above, some rooted in stone itself, others growing without soil, suspended as if by memory alone. The air here is different from anything you've known, so dense with fragrance that it feels like color. Not overwhelming, not sweet, not sharp, just endless. You cannot name the scents. They are not rose, not myrrh, not citrus. Though traces of all these things seem to be held somewhere inside, they move through your nostrils like silk poured through fingers. Each breath feels slow and sacred, and the moment you try to describe one, it vanishes, replaced by something subtler, something older. You take another step, and the ground shifts slightly beneath your weight. It is not unstable. It yields the way sand does under the tide flexing, embracing, restoring, around you. The foliage pulses faintly with the rhythm of your breath, as if this place breathes with you. Petals unfurl as you pass, not opening fully, just enough to acknowledge your presence. Vines withdraw gently, giving you space without resistance. And as you continue, you realize the fragrance is not random, it moves. It shapes your path. A scent like warm amber pulls you one way. Then the crisp shadow of dried fig and saffron lingers to your left. You do not choose where to go. The garden chooses for you. You pass a pool still and dark, ringed with stone, but not reflective. It holds no image, only a silence so complete it feels deeper than sound. You kneel beside it, brush your fingers just above the surface. You do not touch it, but the air there hums, as if the water listens, as if it knows things it will never say aloud. You move on, around a bend of swaying reeds that rustle, though there is no wind. Their motion calms something in you that hadn't known it was anxious. And then the light changes again, not brighter, not dimmer, cooler, thinner, like mist at twilight settling over a garden that does not sleep. Ahead, you see a stone bench, no carvings, no markings, just a simple slab, worn smooth by centuries of bodies resting where yours now moves to sit as you lower yourself. The scent around you thickens. Now it is old cedar and cracked parchment and something you recognize but cannot place. It is the smell of a room you once left behind, a room where someone waited, or wept, or watched you go. You sit with that memory, not the specifics, but the shape of it, and the garden accepts your silence. Nearby, a tree bends its branch low, offering something, a blossom, pale and closed, suspended by a slender thread of stem. You reach toward it, not to pluck, but to observe. And as your hand draws near, the flower opens not quickly, not theatrically, but with the reverence of something sacred being revealed. Inside is not pollen or petal, but a tiny sphere of light, pulsing slowly. It hovers once, then dissolves, not into dust, but into scent. And the scent is your childhood, your father's coat. A story once told at dusk, the echo of a laugh in a house now quiet. You close your eyes, the scent stays, long after the light is gone. You do not cry. There is no sorrow here, only presence, only remembrance without ache. The garden does not demand your emotions. It simply holds them, suspended, safe. You sit for a while longer, not long, not short, until the scent fades and the silence shifts, and then you rise again, lighter, not because you left something behind, but because you picked something up, something invisible, something small, like a piece of a song you'd forgotten. You walk once more, and now the plants thin slightly, giving way to space. The air is cooler, the light has warmed, gold returning to its edges, and up ahead. The garden parts to reveal a long terrace, lined with stone balustrades. You walk to the edge, and the view opens before you. Babylon, or what remains of it, sprawls beneath a soft, rose-colored sky. The walls rise like forgotten prayers, strong but silent. The Euphrates curls its silver body lazily through the land. You see figures moving below, too far to name, too far to interrupt, just shapes, lives, shadows of stories you will never hear. And in the center of your chest, a warmth kindles. You do not know if this is the past or the future, but it is beautiful, and it is enough. The garden behind you waits, not to pull you back, but to remind you that you have been here, that you belong not because you understand, but because you arrived, because you breathe in the fragrance without name, and you let it change you. You step away from the terrace slowly, as if pulling yourself from the edge of a dream that still clings gently to your breath. The garden does not follow, but it does not recede either. It simply remains, waiting in its stillness, neither ending nor beginning. A place that lingers quietly in the folds of your memory. The path ahead is narrower now, flanked by high, windowless walls draped in vines so dark they shimmer blue in the fading light. Your fingers trail along the stone as you walk, and it feels soft somehow. Not in texture, but in intention, like something that has no desire to harm, only to bear witness. The light thins as you pass beneath an arch so low you must bow your head, and beyond it, the air stills completely. Not with silence, but with a kind of ancient waiting. You are in a chamber now. No windows, no torches, just a tall, narrow room carved from smooth gray stone that reflects no shadow. And standing in its center are 7 tall figures, statues. At first glance, each one shaped with such care they appear to breathe, not with lungs, but with gravity. Their faces are expressionless, but not empty. Their eyes do not stare, they rest. Each figure is slightly different in posture, in the tilt of the head, in the angle of the feet, and yet all of them stand the same way, perfectly still, perfectly upright, as if the passage of time forgot to move around them. You do not speak. You do not need to. This is not a place for sound. It is a place for stillness. You step slowly between the figures. Their garments are carved in folds so fine you can almost hear the soft brush of fabric as you pass. Their hands are not clenched, not open. They simply hang, empty, accepting. And each face, each one carved without cruelty, without praise, seems to hold a question, but not demand an answer. You are not being judged, you are being seen. And then you notice what stands behind them. A wall of tiny shelves, each one holding a single item. A tooth, a ring, a dried flower, a piece of cloth folded into a square the size of a coin. There are hundreds of them. Objects so mundane they should mean nothing. But here, they hold weight. You feel it in your ribs. These are offerings not to gods, but to memory itself, to moments so quiet they slipped past history, yet so loud they echo still in someone's soul. You reach toward one, a smooth stone, no larger than your thumb. The moment your fingers touch the edge of the shelf, you are filled with an image, a hand holding it during childbirth, a whisper offered as a life began. You step back, not frightened, humbled, farther in. You find a long bench carved directly into the wall. It is not placed for comfort. It is placed for waiting. You sit, and time begins to behave differently. It does not pass. It thickens. Your thoughts begin to stretch, slow, soften. The breath in your lungs feels deeper now, but not from effort, as if the room itself breathes for you. You close your eyes briefly, and in that space you do not dream. You recall things you did not know you'd forgotten. The feel of your mother's sleeve against your cheek, the smell of dust on books in a summer room, the ache in your chest the first time you lied and were not caught. You open your eyes again. The statues are still standing, but now they seem closer, not in distance, in presence. They do not move, but they listen. Each one holds a story you've never read, but somehow understand. Not the details, only the feeling, the fear before a battle, the weight of mercy withheld, the moment someone almost forgave themselves, but didn't. You do not ask them who they were. You do not need to. They are not here to be known. They are here so that you might remember what stillness can hold. Then, slowly, you notice something new, the faintest trace of warmth against your right hand. You look down, and the stone beneath your palm glows slightly, as if responding to touch. A small circle of light, soft as breath, pulses once, then again, and the wall in front of you begins to change, not crumble, not open, just shift. It darkens at its center, then parts like heavy cloth, revealing a narrow corridor beyond. It is darker there, but not in a threatening way, in a protective way, as if this next space does not wish to startle the world by being revealed too suddenly. You rise, you walk toward it, and before you step through, you turn once more to the 7 figures. They have not moved, but you feel them nod, not physically, spiritually. You do not bow, but you carry something now, a quiet, grounded reverence, a new kind of slowness, a new kind of strength. The chamber does not close behind you. It simply fades, not because it is gone, but because you no longer need it, and ahead. The darkness is soft. It is velvet and smoke and the underside of leaves. It does not swallow, it holds, and in that holding, something inside you begins to hum, not loud, not melodic, just present, like the sound of your own blood remembering its first pulse, like a bell rung only once, but heard forever. And now, as you walk deeper into the place where time sleeps standing up, you do not measure your steps, you do not mark your progress, because here, forward is not a direction, it is a condition of being. You walk forward, deeper into the corridor that breathes like a quiet lung. Each step feels softer now, cushioned not by material, but by meaning. There is no floor beneath you in the way you once understood floors, no stone, no earth, no tiles worn smooth by centuries of passing feet. Instead, you move across something that hums faintly with each shift of your weight, something that remembers how to hold you, even if it doesn't quite exist. The dark ahead is not frightening. It is ancient, womb-like, the kind of darkness that came before light learned how to speak. You are not afraid. You are being carried. And then you see them pinpricks, faint at first, like dust caught in candlelight, then brighter, clearer. Not stars in the sky above, but stars hung at eye level, suspended in nothing, scattered like forgotten names whispered back into the world. Each one pulses gently, not with light alone, but with memory. Not your memories, older ones, universal ones. The first cry of a newborn in a reed basket, the echo of a prayer muttered during drought, the sound of an arrow loosed with both hope and regret. They float all around you, flickering and turning, some spinning slowly, others perfectly still. They are not static. They listen. They respond. You reach toward one, a tiny orb no larger than the nail of your thumb. As your fingers draw near, it flares, not violently but warmly, as if recognizing your curiosity. And suddenly, you are not just standing, you are seeing a garden. Not the one you left behind. This one is drier, cracked soil, olive trees, a wall being built, brick by brick, each stone hoisted with more sweat than hope. A boy, perhaps 10, hauling a jug of water larger than his ribs. and a woman, his mother perhaps, placing her hand on his head not with tenderness, but with restraint, because love, here, cannot be worn openly. You blink. The vision fades, the orb dims. You have seen something that does not belong to you, but it welcomed you nonetheless. You move again, deeper. More stars gather, some larger, some dimmer. You pass one that flickers blue a battlefield, another that hums gold a wedding night in a room with no roof. You do not ask for these stories. You simply receive them. Like wind receives the sound of bells, like rivers receive the names of those who drown in them. Some stars do not reveal anything at all. You pass one that is cold, one that weeps silently, one that glows so softly you're not sure if it's there or if you just wish it were. But you keep walking. The corridor is longer than it was before, or perhaps it never had a length at all. And then, up ahead, something shifts. The stars part not out of fear, but out of reverence. And you see it a great dome, wider than the sky, though no larger than a quiet thought. It floats above you, not supported by columns or walls, but by intention alone. Beneath it is a floor of black stone, flecked with flecks of mirrored light. You step onto it and find your reflection not of your face, but of your presence. A shadow made of feeling, a trace of what you've become since stepping into this story. And in the center of the dome, a pedestal rises, upon it, a single star, larger than the others, flickering not like flame, but like breath, like something alive that has chosen stillness for now. You approach slowly. It does not fear you, it waits. You stop within reach and do not touch it. You simply watch, and within it, you see not history, but possibility. A corridor not yet walked, a choice not yet made, a kindness not yet spoken. This star holds futures, not one, many. They shift within it like fish in water, glinting as they turn, then disappearing into deeper currents. And as you watch, it speaks not in sound, not in language, but in feeling. It says, you are part of this. Not because you are special, but because you are present, because you chose to walk, because you chose to look. You stand there for some time, or no time. Time has long stopped behaving like a servant. Here, it is a guest. And when you finally step back, the star does not dim. It remains as it was, open. You leave it behind. Though it follows you now, not as light, not as shadow, but as imprint, a faint warmth beneath your ribs, a soft certainty behind your eyes. You walk once more, through the dome, back into the corridor of stars. But now, they feel different, less like strangers, more like siblings. You do not stop at each one. You simply nod, and they nod back. And when you emerge, finally, from the corridor, it is not into day or night, it is into stillness, a flat plain of white sand, a single tree rising in the distance, and above, the sky not blue, not black, just full, not of stars, not of clouds, full of potential. And here, you stop, not because there is no path, but because now, you do not need one. The wind brushes past your shoulders, carrying with it scents of fig and cedar, hints of crushed stone and memory. You close your eyes, and for the first time since entering this dream, you feel not like a traveler, but like someone returning, someone being remembered. And the stars, somewhere behind you, whisper your name not as it was, not as it will be, but as it truly is, when no one is listening but the night. The wind on the plain quiets, curling softly around your ankles like a gentle animal. And as you stand there, no longer a stranger to this story, but a thread in its woven cloth, you begin to smell something warm. Not smoke, not dust, but food. Not food like what you know now, but food built from memory, layered with intention, as if the earth itself were slow cooking its past into the air. You walk toward it, slowly, steadily. Each step presses into the white sand with the weight of your own presence. And then, rising on the horizon like a promise, you see it a low stone hall with no walls, only wide columns that hold up a roof of woven reeds and copper beams. It hums gently, not from sound, but from the collective anticipation of mouths that have not yet eaten. You approach the open threshold and step inside. The light changes instantly, not dimmer, not brighter, just thicker, as if it had been simmering on low flame for hours and only now begins to release its full scent. Inside, a long table stretches from one end of the hall to the other. It is not made of wood. It is made of history pressed together from the fragments of forgotten doorways and market stalls, from old ships and broken cradles, now sanded smooth, now waiting to be used for the only purpose that matters gathering. There are no chairs, only cushions, and they are not uniform, each one shaped differently, as if to remember that no two bodies come to rest the same way. You lower yourself onto one and find that it understands you, not physically, but emotionally, as if it's been waiting to cradle someone carrying your exact weight of memory. The table is already laid, not with gold, not with silver, but with care. Earthen plates the color of river mud, bowls carved from olive wood, cloth napkins folded like quiet birds. And on the plates food, mountains of it. No steam rises from them. They are neither hot nor cold. They are present. A flat round loaf, still warm at its center. Honey so thick it glows. A stew with lentils and fig, thick enough to remember the hand that stirred it. There are no servants, no hosts, no guests, just presence. The air is full of anticipation, but not hunger, because this meal is not for the body. It is for the remembering. And so, you do not eat, not at first. You let the scent tell you what came before. You lean forward, breaking off a piece of bread. It does not flake. It tears slowly, as if reluctant to leave its shape. You bring it to your lips, and even before you taste it, you know this is not the food of kings. This is the food of their servants, the kind that lasts, the kind that nourishes even after it's gone, and as it touches your tongue. You are filled not just with flavor, but with time, a room with low beams, a man and a woman sitting side by side, their elbows touching as they chew in silence. Outside, goats shift restlessly in dust. Inside, nothing moves except the bread between fingers. You swallow. The vision fades, but it leaves behind warmth. You try the stew next. It is darker than you expected, spiced, rooted. It holds no sweetness, but it holds stories. And one by one, they rise. A soldier dipping his fingers into a bowl before a march. A widow stirring pot after pot to feed not her children, but her memory of them. A young girl licking the rim of a wooden spoon because there is nothing else left. Each bite brings not fullness, but softness, a kind of loosening in the chest, as if grief, carried too long, is finally allowed to melt. You reach for fruit, dates, figs, pomegranate seeds like blood pearls. They do not glisten, they do not shine. But when you place them in your mouth, they do not taste of sweetness. They taste of endings, the last bite before exile, the final feast before drought, the celebration of harvest that will not come again. And yet, none of it is sad, not here, because everything is remembered, and nothing is wasted, not even the salt from a cheek. And then, from the center of the table, rises a dish you had not seen before, covered in cloth. You remove it slowly. Beneath it, single roasted onion, split at the top, edges blackened, steam curling faintly upward like a whisper. You lean closer, and in that scent, you are transported again, this time to a kitchen, not grand, but sacred. Stones blackened from centuries of smoke, a child watching a grandmother hum as she turns a root over coals. There is no fire here, only memory of fire. And you understand now? This is not a feast to be devoured. It is a ritual of remembrance. Each bite a key, each scent a door. You sit back, full not of food, but of feeling, the kind that cannot be named, only carried, only passed down. And as you look around, you notice now that you are not alone, not entirely. Shadows sit where others might have, not people, not ghosts, just impressions. A shoulder shape here, a breath over there. The room is full of those who have eaten here before, and those who will eat here again. They do not speak, they do not move, but they are with you, in the breaking of bread, in the dipping of fingers, In the silence between swallows, you rest your hands on the table, and it does not tremble. It steadies, as if to say, you were always meant to arrive here. You just forgot the road. And before you rise, you leave something behind. Not a coin, not a crumb, just a thought, folded gently into the grain of the table, so that someone else, someday, might feel your presence in the wood and not know why they smile. You stand. The hall does not empty. It continues, without you, but not without your trace. And as you walk out, the wind meets you again. Not as before. It does not ask questions now. It carries answers, quiet ones, gentle ones, ones only understood long after the meal is over. You keep walking, and behind you, the table waits for the next story. You continue walking, guided not by sight, but by the weight of stillness, as if the wind itself had decided to hold its breath. The path beneath your feet narrows, from sand to smooth stone, then from stone to something older, packed earth laced with crushed seashells and ash. With each step, your senses begin to adjust, not to light or sound, but to memory. There is something ahead that does not want to be found too quickly, something that remembers being forgotten. The hallway opens slowly, not with grandeur, but with intimacy. A low corridor, just high enough for your shoulders to move freely, just narrow enough to make every breath feel borrowed. The walls are not bare, they are alive, covered in layers, not paint, not carvings, but residue, finger trails, thumbprints, faint scratches, as if centuries of hands had passed along them, each one leaving behind a question, or perhaps a secret. You reach out without thinking, letting your fingertips graze the surface. It is not cold, not warm either. It feels receptive, like touching the back of someone who has just turned away. And then, softly, it begins. A sound, not a word, not a whisper, just a breath, drawn from the wall itself, not out, but in. As if the stones were remembering how to inhale. You stop, listen. And slowly, slowly, a voice arrives. It does not come from above or behind or ahead. It comes from all around, and it speaks not in your language, but in sensation. You hear it with your ribs. You feel it beneath your skin. It says, "You are not the first." The words do not startle you. They settle, like a blanket pulled over a restless dream. You walk again, slower now, listening. The corridor deepens. The light shifts, no torches, no candles, just a low glow from the walls themselves, like lichen fed by memory. As you move, the voices continue, different ones, each layered over the next, never interrupting, only weaving. A woman humming while weaving cloth in the dark, a man reciting poetry to no one while sharpening a blade, a child counting something lost. The walls do not echo, they contain. You stop at a section that feels heavier, not visually, but atmospherically. There is pressure here. You place your palm flat against the wall. It resists for a moment, then it gives, and suddenly, you're elsewhere, not transported, but overlapped. A room, small, damp, a single slit for a window, rain outside, inside. A scribe, kneeling, whispering lines as he copies them by oil lamp. He is not writing for fame. He is writing because someone must, because if he stops, the memory stops. You pull your hand back, you are you again, but different now, farther in. The corridor changes direction, a curve, subtle, as if the building itself were adjusting to accommodate a memory that didn't want to sit still. You follow it. The floor dips, then rises. You pass beneath an arch, where 2 fingerprints have been worn deep into the stone. You place your thumbs there. They fit. Not perfectly, but honestly. And the wall sighs, not audibly, but internally, like something old that has been waiting to be touched again. The whispers grow bolder, not louder, just more confident. They are no longer asking, they are sharing. A tale of a betrayal whispered into a lover's ear moments before battle. The scratch of chalk marking the day a kingdom fell. A prayer spoken so often into the same wall that the stone itself began to recite it in sleep. You do not judge these stories. You carry them, like water in cupped hands. leaking a little, but still enough to matter. Eventually, the corridor widens. You step into a chamber, round, perfectly so. The kind of round that could not have been built by rulers, only by instinct. The ceiling curves like a closed eyelid. In its center, a small circle of open sky. The stars are visible. Though you're not sure if they are real, they do not twinkle. They blink slowly, like something ancient adjusting to see you clearly. Around the chamber, benches carved directly from the walls, no sharp angles, only curves. You sit. The stone beneath you is not cold. It cradles, across from you. The wall is darker, you stare, and it stares back. You do not move. And then, slowly, images begin to rise from the surface, not drawn, not etched, formed, from within. Shadows of faces, layers of expression. They shift. One moment, an old woman with a line of sorrow across her brow. The next, a young man grinning with dirt on his teeth. Then a mask, then a mirror, then a child you do not recognize, but somehow remember. You don't speak, you don't need to. The chamber is listening, and in return, it offers silence, not the absence of noise, the fullness of stillness. The kind of silence that knows your name, even when you've forgotten it. You breathe in deeply. The air here tastes of iron and myrrh and wet parchment. You exhale. The wall exhales with you, a synchronized sigh from centuries apart. Before you rise, you place your hand to your chest, just to feel what is still beating. It is slower now, not tired, just aligned, as if your body has recalibrated itself to the rhythm of this place, to the breath of walls that remember. You walk out of the chamber, back into the corridor. The whispers begin to fade, not because they are leaving, but because they've been given. You are carrying them now, and as the light begins to brighten again, you see the end of the corridor ahead, an archway carved with vines that no longer exist, a doorway with no door. You pass through, and behind you, the walls fall silent, but not empty. They are full of you now, just as you are full of them. A trade, quiet, complete. You do not look back. You do not need to. You walk forward, and the story continues. The arch behind you fades from memory before you even realize you've stepped away from it. The air is denser here now, cooler, wetter, carrying the faint scent of moss and limestone. There is no path beneath your feet anymore, only shallow water, so still and so clear that you can see the outline of smooth stones below. You step forward. The water folds gently around your ankles without protest, as if it has been waiting for you, memorizing the shape of your steps long before you arrived. It does not ripple. It breathes with you. A low ceiling above your head curves in like the inside of a conch shell. It glistens with condensation, catching the dim light that seems to rise not from lamps, but from the water itself. The soundscape shifts. Gone are the whispers of walls. Now, only the soft lapping of water against stone, and something subtler, faint rustle, as though paper were turning somewhere in the distance. But with no hand to touch it, you keep walking. The water remains shallow, never rising above your shins. Yet it gives the impression of something much deeper, as if below your steps. There are miles of stories, sleeping in darkness, undisturbed for lifetimes. Then you see it, a shape up ahead, rising from the water like an island, a structure of sorts, square, silent, and utterly impossible. A library, no walls, no roof, just rows of tall, open frames that stand like sentinels in the water, each filled with tablets, scrolls, and ancient bindings that glisten with dew but remain untouched by decay. The shelves stretch in all directions, some leaning as if tired, others standing so straight they seem to defy the humidity. You step between them. No door greets you, no threshold bars your way. You are already welcome. The first shelf holds clay tablets, etched with wedge-shaped script, cuneiform, but not dry. Their surfaces shimmer faintly, as if the lines themselves are alive, pulsing with the memory of the hands that shaped them. You brush one with your fingertips. It hums, not with sound, but with purpose. A trade agreement, a love letter, a curse. You do not read the words. You feel them. as if language were water and your skin the page. Further in, scrolls made of reed and linen, tightly wound, held closed by red twine that crumbles at your breath. You lift one, it unrolls with reverence. Inside, not text, but drawings, diagrams of stars, charts of floods, a record of seasons, marked not by dates, but by the positions of birds in the morning sky. The ink does not fade, because it never needed to last. The memory lives in the rhythm, not the pigment, deeper still. You come across bindings of leather, cracked and creased, each one stamped with seals that no longer exist in the world above. You open one. The script flows in ink so faint, it seems to appear only when your eyes soften. These are not stories. These are dreams, written by those who could not sleep. Kings, priests, midwives, they all dreamed, and someone recorded it. You read a line, then another. You do not understand it, but your chest tightens, and your spine straightens. As if some part of you once spoke this language too. The shelves go on. You come across a ladder, floating sideways, tethered by a single rope to a post that no longer stands. Beneath it, a bundle of documents sealed in wax, still unbroken. You do not disturb it. Some knowledge is not for breaking. Some knowledge waits only to be witnessed. You lower your hand to the water. Beneath the surface, barely visible, are more shelves, more books, more stories. They do not rot. They do not rise. They stay, as if the weight of their memory holds them in place, as if even the water respects their need to rest. And then you see ETA reading chair, simple, carved from driftwood, placed not on a platform, but directly in the water, as if to remind the reader you are part of this tide. You sit. The water laps gently at your ankles. Nothing more. The shelves form a ring around you. No two shelves are the same height. Some are barely knee level. Others rise taller than trees. You lean back. The chair creaks, not in complaint, in conversation, a sigh, a welcome, a recognition. In the center of the ring, floating just above the surface of the water, a single book, unlike the others. It is not bound, its pages drift, connected by breath alone. You reach for it. Your fingers hesitate, but the book moves toward you. Just enough. You take it. It opens without effort. Inside, only one page, blank. Or so it seems. But the longer you stare, the more you notice traces of ink, then entire lines, then whole passages. They appear not as words, but as memories, your own, and not just yours. Versions of you, in places you've never been, saying things you've never said, but always meant. The book is not telling you a story. It is asking you to remember it. You close the page, carefully. You do not need to keep it. It has already kept you. You rise. The chair does not protest. The water embraces your ankles again. The shelves do not vanish. They remain, patient, eternal. And as you step away, the book drifts back to its place, hovering, waiting, not for another reader, but for another memory to be written. You walk out of the library. The water grows warmer, thinner, as if saying goodbye. The light changes, not brighter, just fuller. The sound of dripping slows. The scrolls stop whispering. You do not look back, because now, the library lives in you, its stories folded into your breath, its silence a seed behind your eyes. And as you step onto dry ground again, you feel it not knowledge, not enlightenment, but a deep, calming emptiness, the kind that comes only after something ancient has trusted you enough to be seen. You emerge from the quiet water and step onto stone again, not dry, but slick with dew, smooth beneath your bare soles as if polished by centuries of wind and soft footsteps. The air here carries a perfume that doesn't belong to any single flower, something older, wilder, richer, a blend of crushed jasmine, warm soil, fig bark, and the faint sweetness of rain held too long in the petals of something forgotten. You inhale, slowly, and it fills your lungs like a memory too gentle to speak. The path ahead isn't clear. There are no gates, no fences, only growth. Plants weave together like conversations, some tall and reaching, others low and tangled. No symmetry, no intention. Yet not a single leaf feels misplaced. The ground hums not with noise, but with pulse. Life here doesn't sleep. Not fully, not ever. This is the garden that never closed its eyes. You take a step forward. The soft hush of your movement doesn't disturb the air, it becomes part of it. Flowers bend slightly, not away from you, but toward you, as if to hear your heartbeat. A low tree stretches one thin branch your way, offering a single droplet resting on a curled leaf. It falls onto your wrist and trails down like silk. Cool, brief, perfect. The light here comes from nowhere and everywhere. No sun above, but a soft glow behind each leaf. Under each petal, you pass beneath a vine-laced arch where white blossoms fall without sound, dissolving before they ever touch the ground. The scent they leave lingers longer than their form. You do not speak. You do not need to. This is not a place for sound. Ahead, a circle of stone, covered in moss, sunken into the earth like a breath held too long. In its center grows a tree short, twisted, ancient. Every inch of its bark is carved, not with blades, but with time. You walk to it and reach out. The bark is warm, alive. Its pattern not a language, but a feeling, grief and joy, wrapped so tightly together that one could not exist without the other. Beneath the tree, the earth dips gently into a basin. Inside, lily pads float in still water, the color of copper and cloud. You kneel and look in, not at yourself, but into the reflection of the tree above. Except this tree has fruit, blue, gold, and silver, each glowing softly, pulsing like stars. You blink. The fruit disappears. Only leaves remain. The garden is reminding you it shows only what you're ready to carry. You rise and continue walking. The plants thicken, rising taller than your shoulders now. Their leaves brushing your arms like fingers trailing along a lover's spine. A breeze moves through them, slow, soft, constant. You cannot feel its direction, only its effect. The foliage parts in waves ahead of you, guiding you without command to your left. A pool, not water, something else. Dark, still, polished like obsidian. You crouch beside it and peer in. The surface is mirror-like, but what it reflects isn't now. It is a garden, this same place. But long ago, you see people walking slow, silent, heads bowed. Each carries a lantern of oil and flower petals, balanced on flat wooden trays. They don't speak. They move like ritual, like memory. You blink. The image fades. The pool returns to stillness. It keeps its secrets without shame. You move again, turning a gentle bend where the path is no longer stone, but woven roots. Each step flexes softly beneath you. You feel not just your own motion, but the pulse of everything underfoot beetles, drinking roots, sleeping seeds. This is not a garden kept by hands. It keeps itself. And you are not an intruder. You are temporarily borrowed. Then, a clearing. In its center, a bench of carved granite, overgrown with ivy, yet not abandoned. A single candle burns on a ledge nearby, protected by a dome of crystal so thin it catches your breath on the glass. You sit. The granite accepts your weight. It is not hard. It is not soft. It simply is. And then the garden breathes around you. It does not move, but it lives. The leaves shift as if listening to something ancient. The light dims, not into darkness, but into calm. A deep twilight, somewhere. A bell chimes, not rung by a hand, just struck by time itself. Once, then silence, then a second time. And you understand, the garden does not sleep, but it dreams. You close your eyes, only for a moment, and when you open them, the garden has changed, slightly, subtly. The flowers have shifted hue. What was once indigo is now rust. The moss has thickened underfoot. The candle remains, but the wax has melted lower. You have not slept. You have simply paused. As you rise, something touches your hand. A leaf. Falling not from above, but growing toward you. It brushes your fingertips, then lets go. You do not take it. You do not pocket it. You let it return. Because here, nothing needs to be kept, only witnessed. You leave the clearing, the bench remains, the candle, too, for someone else, or perhaps for a memory that will return in your absence. The garden doesn't follow you, but it does not forget. The path ahead narrows once more. Vines thin, trees recede, the air grows drier, not arid, just less humid. The scent of fig gives way to cedar. The light begins to fade, not into dark, but into dusk. The garden is letting go of you, the way it has let go of every traveler who once passed through and dared to see it without asking to own it. You reach a final archway. This one is made not of vines or stone, but of branches woven together with care, perhaps centuries ago, perhaps moments before you arrived. You step beneath it. You do not look back, because the garden is not behind you. It is inside you now. You walk now through a narrow passage, one so quiet that even your own breath feels like a stranger. The walls are close, but not oppressive textured like sandstone, cool to the touch, and worn smooth by generations of passing hands. There's no echo here, no sound bouncing back, only stillness, a silence so full that it hums softly beneath your ribs. The path curves downward, gently, like a descending spiral that was carved not by tools, but by intention. You do not feel lost, you feel uncounted. The light begins to fade, not because it disappears, but because it becomes part of the walls themselves, embedded like memory into every surface, casting no shadows, only soft reflections. The deeper you go, the more you realize this isn't a place you have entered. It's a place you've returned to, as though your feet remembered the rhythm long before your mind caught up. At the bottom of the spiral, there is a door. It has no knob, no lock, no visible hinges. Just a smooth stone rectangle, fitted so perfectly into the wall that it seems to breathe with the same rhythm as your own chest. And yet, as you approach, it opens not outward or inward, but slowly dissolves, like mist warming in sunlight. No sound, no effort, just a yielding. Inside, the room is round, utterly still. Its walls curve upward into a dome so vast, it vanishes into shadow. Though no part of the space is truly dark, in the center of the room, a single objecta. Table, not large, not ornate, made of something between wood and stone, with edges softened by time and touch. You walk toward it. Your steps make no noise. The air here absorbs every footfall like sand on a forgotten shoreline. There are no windows in this place, no lamps, no clocks, and yet it is filled with presence, a presence so old it no longer carries urgency. Here, time is not measured, it is held, like water in a still bowl, deep and undisturbed. You circle the table. Upon it sits a single item, a vessel, shallow, wide, made of bronze or perhaps something older. Inside it, a handful of sand, not scattered, not poured, just placed, carefully, precisely. Every grain seems deliberate, arranged not by pattern, but by memory. You reach out not to touch, but to feel, and you do feel it. Before your fingers even arrive, warmth, not heat, like the warmth of skin that has just released a thought. This is the room without time. It has no purpose, and yet everything in it exists with reason. You look to the walls, no art, no inscriptions, but texture, rippled, layered, like sediment in a canyon wall. Each layer a moment, pressed into the next until they are no longer separate. You approach one section, place your hand upon it, your palm tingles not with energy, but with recognition. You have been here before, or perhaps some part of you that was never named has always been here. You close your eyes, behind your eyelids. The dome pulses with a faint golden light. It does not move. It simply exists, and in its presence, something in you exhales, slowly, deeply, without demand. You sit, not on a chair, there is none. You sit on the floor, and it receives you like memory receives a song. Your spine softens, your neck loosens, your hands rest in your lap, unsure whether they're holding something or being held. The room says nothing, but in its silence, a question appears, not in words, but in sensation. What would you do? If time never asked anything from you, you breathe in, you do not answer, you do not need to. The room is not waiting. Moments pass, or maybe hours. It makes no difference. You rise again, not hurried, not slow, just in rhythm with the breath of the place. As you step away from the table, you notice that the grains of sand in the vessel have shifted, just slightly. One has fallen into the curve of another. Nothing more, but somehow, it matters. Somehow. That is everything. You begin to move toward what you thought was the wall. But there is no end here. Instead, the room reveals another doorway. Not a door. Exactly. But a thinning of space, as if a curtain has lifted from inside your mind. You step through it, behind you. The table remains, the sand remains, the warmth remains. But you do not look back, because in this place, nothing is behind or ahead. There is only center as you walk forward. The texture beneath your feet changes, from cool stone to something softer, woven reeds, perhaps braided together in a pattern too intricate to be accidental, but too gentle to feel designed. Each step you take echoes slightly now, not outward, but inward, like walking through the pages of a memory just before it was forgotten. A final wall appears, not to stop you, but to remind you. It is smooth, glowing faintly. Upon it, faint etchings, no script, no symbols, just shallow grooves, spiraling like a fingerprint, drawn by hands who no longer remember their names. You lift your palm and place it on the wall. A pulse. Once, then again, and then nothing. You remove your hand. The wall begins to part. You step through, not into light, not into shadow, but into something deeper. The threshold you pass through feels like breath meeting breath, like warmth brushing warmth, like something softly closing behind you that never had hinges to begin with. You are no longer in the room of stillness. This place is different, drier, earthier. A scent rises to greet you, not perfume, not decay, but the raw, unsettled mixture of ash, clay, and old iron, as though the ground beneath your feet remembers fire, not destruction, not ruin, but a fire that once warmed lives now forgotten by every map, every mouth, every monument. You step into a corridor shaped by flame, not burning, not smoking, but once, long ago, it had been. You can feel it in the air, in the faint warmth trapped between the stone tiles, in the way every corner is slightly curled inward, like a page scorched at the edge, then left alone to cool. The walls here are blackened, not with soot, but with memory, and still. They hold above you. Faint outlines of carvings remain, faded by heat and time, figures with outstretched arms, faces turned upward, birds flying in spiral formation. You do not recognize the symbols, but they don't feel foreign. They feel ancestral, like stories once told under stars and whispered into the mouths of sleeping children, so they'd wake remembering things they never lived. A soft wind curls through the corridor, not cold, not harsh. It brings with it the sound of crackling like old parchment, like dry leaves beneath a slow foot. You cannot see the source, but you know it is not wind. It is an echo, the echo of fire that burned not in rage, but in ritual. You keep walking. The floor grows uneven. Patches of glass-like obsidian interrupt the stone, catching light that doesn't seem to come from anywhere. Your steps shift. The ground beneath your feet begins to rise gently, and the path narrows. You are climbing now, not a mountain, something else. A mound built of burnt stone and dust, something that once stood tall and fierce, now humbled by its own endurance. You reach the summit of the path, and there it is, the chamber, wide, circular, hollowed by force but shaped by care. Its walls glisten faintly with layers of mineral and ash, like a canyon licked by flame. In its center a pyre, or what remains of it, charcoal gray wood, stacked in elegant lines like ribs of a sleeping animal. No smoke, no heat, just stillness, as though the fire within had long ago finished speaking. You step closer, and then, it happens, a sound, just one. A single ember hidden deep in the ashes gives a soft, reluctant crack. You freeze. Listen. A snap, not loud, not urgent, just present, alive. The fire is not burning, but it is not dead. It remembers. You kneel beside the remnants. You do not touch them. You only watch. a flicker, barely there. A ghost of heat curls into the air, visible only because you know to look. It doesn't rise, it hovers. And as you stare deeper into the ashes, images begin to form, not visions, not dreams, but shadows of truth. You see builders carrying brick after brick, their faces streaked with sweat and soot. You see women walking barefoot across tile paths, balancing clay jars filled with water that steam slightly in the heat. You see elders teaching children to gather herbs that would dry near the kilns, their roots holding scent long after fire claimed the leaves. None of these people turn toward you. None of them see you, because this is not about you. You are not visiting this place. You are witnessing its echo. You sit down, slowly, let your hands rest on your knees. The ground beneath you feels oddly familiar, as though you have sat here before, not in body, in something older. Time begins to thicken, the air becomes heavier, not oppressive, just full, like the last breath before sleep, like the hush before the first rain. A pressure builds inside your chest, not from pain, but from remembrance. 1,000 lives layered atop one another, none of them asking to be named, just felt. The fire lets go of one last breath. A sigh of warmth curls into your cheek and disappears. The chamber cools, the echoes fade, and you rise, not changed, only returned. The path downward is gentler than the one before, softer beneath your feet. The obsidian patches are gone now, replaced by sand, fine and warm, like the floor of a hearth long since gone cold. The carvings return fewer now, more delicate, just waves, repeating, curved, receding. As you exit the chamber, the corridor widens once again. A breeze follows you, fresh, dry. It carries the scent of lavender and smoke, and something older, something you have no name for. You emerge into open air. The sky above is a shade between blue and bronze, and the horizon hums like a low note from a forgotten instrument. You do not speak, there is nothing to say. This place has spoken, and you have listened. You step beyond the scorched corridors and the whispering stones, out into an open space where the sky stretches wide and dim, painted not with the gold of day or the ink of night, but a quiet in-between, the color of candle wax just before it melts. The space between two moons, the hush before the stars are ready to speak. The wind here is gentler than breath, cooler than memory, brushing your skin as though it remembers you from a time you never lived, before you. There is a bridge, not one made of stone or rope, not something built by hands or measured by tools, but a long, gently arching path formed of light and shadow, of moonbeams pressed together so many times they've learned how to carry weight. Beneath it, a dark chasm waits, not threatening, not yawning, just present deep and still, like a well filled with time instead of water. You place one foot forward and the bridge does not creak, does not shift, does not question you. It simply allows. You walk slowly. Each step releases a faint echo that is not sound, but sensation, soft reminder of every dream you've forgotten. Every hour of night you slept through without knowing who watched over you. The air thickens with jasmine and some deeper scent, cedarwood perhaps, or the faint trace of ink from a scribe's forgotten scroll. Around you, nothing moves, yet everything feels alive. The stones far below hum with silence. The sky above leans closer, halfway across the bridge. You stop, not because you are uncertain, but because something calls you to stillness. There, rising just beyond the next bend, is the second moon, not round, not full, but bent in the shape of an eyelid half closed in reverie. It glows not with light, but with memory. The glow seeps through your ribs. You do not resist. Your thoughts grow slow. The weight of the day, the questions you never answered, the names you forgot to say aloud, all of it slips backward, off your shoulders, falling gently into the void below, where it lands without a sound and will never need to be retrieved. You are no longer just walking. You are floating, but not above the earth between times, between breath and stillness, between the stories that were once carved into stone and those that never left a single mark. You reach the far side of the bridge and find not a gate, not a city, not a grand hall as you might expect, but a garden. smaller than the hanging gardens, perhaps, but older in feeling. It is filled not with flowers or trees, but with fragments clay vessels half buried in soil, feathers arranged like letters of a language lost, pebbles polished smooth by hands that do not live anymore. In the center, there is a basin, shallow, still, and full of moonlight. You kneel, not from reverence, from instinct, the way one kneels to listen to a sleeping child breathe. The water does not reflect your face, it reflects your memory, even the parts you have never seen. You dip your fingers in. It is neither cool nor warm, only accepting around you. The garden does not speak, yet you hear things. A laugh from long ago, a lullaby once hummed through teeth now turned to dust, the sound of a single drop of oil falling onto dry stone, a whisper in a language that cannot be translated, but you understand it anyway. You sit beside the basin, arms resting on your knees, head tilted back slightly, just enough to feel the weight of the second moon pressing gently against your brow. It does not ask anything of you. It does not shine to be seen. It shines because it remembers. You breathe in. The scent of the place wraps around your lungs like silk woven from the wind. You breathe out and feel lighter, not emptier, just more real, more here. You stay in the garden as the moon begins its slow descent behind clouds that aren't clouds at all, but veils of breath exhaled by the land as it dreams of what it once was. The bridge behind you remains, but you do not look back. Not because there is sorrow, but because there is no longer anything missing. The air grows softer still, the shadows rounder, the silence deeper. You do not rise, you do not leave. You simply let yourself remain, exactly as you are, exactly as you were always meant to feel held, not by stone, not by sky, but by time itself, folded gently into the crook of an ancient arm that has no name, no end, and no reason to let go. You do not know how long you've been sitting in the garden, but time here does not pass the way it does elsewhere. It does not press upon your shoulders or whisper worries into your ears. Instead, it hangs like a veil of soft linen, drifting in warm air, untied to any urgency. You blink slowly, your fingers gently curled over your knees. The scent of the air has shifted again, and now it carries a faint breath of something sweet, figs perhaps, or the soft pulp of ripe dates split open under the sun. It mingles with the older smells, earth and dust and woven straw, and something else too. The lightest trace of myrrh, not sharp, not perfumed, just aged and patient. You let your head tilt downward, your gaze settling again on the shallow basin. Its surface has stilled completely. No longer glowing now, but holding on to the last reflections of the second moon, as though reluctant to let it go. You feel the wind rise slightly, but even that is gentle, as if it too has learned to whisper only and never speak above a. Hush, the pebbles in the garden do not shift, but they seem somehow closer, as if they too have been listening and have leaned in. Just a little you feel a sensation move through you, not from without, but from within. A recognition not of a place, but of a state. A return, not to a building or a memory, but to a rhythm, to a breath that was always yours. Even before lungs, a pause, even before time. You are not cold, you are not hungry, you are not curious, you are simply present, and this presence is not heavy. It is feather-like and old and rooted and alive. The garden seems to breathe with you in a rhythm not measured by minutes, but by stillness, by memory, by the quiet pulse of a place that has never once tried to be anything other than what it is. You reach down and touch the edge of the basin, just barely enough to feel the smoothness of its stone, the thin layer of dew that has begun to form. The stone is warmer than you expect, as if holding the memory of touch, not just yours, but from lifetimes of hands. That once came here in silence and left without a trace. You rise slowly. No urgency, no instruction, only instinct. Your legs respond like reeds lifting in water. Your spine straightens like a drawn thread. The garden offers no path outward, no sign, no doorway, only space. But somehow, your feet know which way to turn. You take a step, and then another, and then another. And the air begins to thicken again, not with weight, but with quiet. It folds around you like a curtain, falling, like a sigh. Released, your surroundings blur not in darkness, but in simplicity. as though the world has shed its detail to make space for stillness. The soft earth beneath you becomes smoother. The garden's edge begins to fade, not vanish, but dissolve, as though made of wind. The scents linger but no longer lead you, the sounds dim, but not from distance. It is simply that the time for listening has ended, and the time for resting has come. Ahead of you, you see it, the low flicker of amber light, the same light that has followed you in. Many forms through many places tonight, the candle that never burns out, the ember that never quite cools, the breath that never ends. You walk toward it slowly, your breath matching its rhythm. Your eyes half closed, not from exhaustion, but from fullness. The kind of fullness that comes not from having more, but from needing less. And as you step into the place where the light meets you fully, you do not speak, you do not think, you only feel. And in that feeling, there is no need for language, no need for stories, no need for you to carry anything else anymore. The light does not grow, it does not reach it, only welcomes, and as you step into it, the last sensation that greets you is warmth, not heat, not brightness, just warmth, like the last breath of someone who loved you once quietly and without asking anything in return. And so, here we are, at the end, not of a journey, not of a tale, but of a night of remembering, of wandering, of breathing through stone and time and silence, and if your eyes are heavy. Now if the air around you feels deeper, if the world beyond these walls has begun to slip into distance, know that it is not, because anything has ended, but because something ancient has finally come home. And the rest of the story does not need to be told. It only needs to be felt, and so we leave you here, not with words, but with a hush and the soft, steady sound of fire in the dark.